Well, hello and welcome to today's webinar, Spring Trap Tune-Up. I'm Abby Good, the Trap Support Specialist at Pig Brig Trap Systems. And before we begin, we'd like to cover some brief housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be available within the next few days. Please note that you can ask questions at any time during the webinar using the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You may also utilize the chat to talk with other attendees. And now it is my pleasure to introduce you to our speaker, Tony Fazzino. Tony, you have our attention.
All right, everyone. So tonight we're going to be talking a little bit about trap maintenance. This time of year is a great time to get your trap out of the field and take a look at it and get it up and running for those better trapping seasons. So let's go ahead and get started. So like I had said, this time of year, we tend to have a little bit more trouble trapping pigs in general because there's a lot of food out there. You have new forbs and grasses that are popping up. A lot of leaves, a lot of trees are budding and putting out leaves. A lot of new rain is coming through, so a lot of the grubs and worms are coming up to the surface. And so that's presenting a lot of food for those pigs, and trying to bait them in is just not quite as effective because there's so much for them to eat out there. So we like to call that bait leverage. If the pigs are not coming to the bait quite as well, then that's a reduced bait leverage because there's so much other food out there. So since there's so much food out there, it's a great time of year to get your trap out of the field, take a look at it, make sure it's being maintained properly and getting a good lifespan out of it and getting it ready for those better trapping seasons. So first thing on the list is going to be to inspect your trap. With our trap system, you've got the net and you've got the other components. You've got straps and anchors and everything like that. So you're going to want to take a look at your net. You're going to want to make sure there's no worn spots, no holes, no tears, nothing like that. Any small hole, it just happens that if you have a small hole, those tend to get larger quickly. So you want to be able to tackle those quickly, make sure your net is in good working order, and be sure that you have no damage to it. We do offer some repair kits on our website that are meant to mend this net properly. And so those do a great job of repairing the net. And if you have any questions on that or anything like that, feel free to reach out to our trap support. They do a great job of making sure that we know exactly how that damage happened and how to prevent it in the future. The second part of that is checking on your components, your different components. So you've got your double hook cam straps, you've got your internal anchor stakes, you've got your mid-post cam straps. You want to check those over, make sure they're not bent or broken, rusty, worn down, or cut. Obviously a little bit of rust is not a problem at all. But if it seems like your components are rusted all the way through, or if it looks like they've weakened because of it, you definitely want to be on top of that and order some new components. You want to be sure that all of your components are in proper working order. That way, when the pigs are ready to be caught, you can be out in the field trapping and you don't have to worry about trying to order anything. The next thing is, once you've checked and you've made sure that everything is in good working order, you've got all the components that you need, you're going to move on to cleaning up your net. Now, cleaning your net is going to improve the lifespan of it significantly because you're not having all of that organic matter sitting on that netting, breaking down. And so we recommend every time that you pull that net out of the field, you're going to want to remove the debris from it, whether that's leaves, sticks. A lot of times you have vines that will grow up through it. You're going to want to remove all of that from the net, big clots of mud. Get that all off the net. And then what we'll recommend is placing that in some sort of tote or bin that's full of water. Now, when you do that, you let it soak for about 15 to 30 minutes until all of that mud and dirt has softened up. And if you take that net afterwards and hang it up, whether it's from some trees or a clothesline or something of that nature, you can actually take a water hose and spray all of that mud off of it. And that gets your net nice and clean and ready for storage. So once you've gotten all your debris, all of your mud and dirt off your net, you're going to want to let that sit up and dry out completely. You want to make sure that there's no more moisture in the net, because if you leave moisture in it and then you put it in a bin, that's going to lead to mold and mildew, and nobody wants to deal with that. But once you've got it completely dry, you can place it in any sort of tote or trash can. About usually a 50-gallon tote is a perfect size, 50 to 55-gallon. A lot of times you can ball that net up, place it in the tote with all of its components, and put a lid on it. The reason you're going to want a lid on that is to keep the rodents out of it. If you don't keep the rodents out, if you leave no lid on it and you put it in a storage shed, the next time you go to pull it out, it's going to look like the net went through a shredder, because for some reason, rats and mice love to get in there, take all that material and bring it back for bedding material. So be sure that it's covered and in a container that'll keep rodents away from it. And another thing to keep in mind is when you're storing that net, you're going to want to keep it in an area that doesn't have any extreme temperatures. So I wouldn't recommend placing it up in your attic, because your attic gets very, very hot during the summertime. But a great spot would be a garage or a storage shed, somewhere that it doesn't get extremely hot or extremely cold. And that helps maintain the net properly. Another good note to keep in mind with expanding or including a better lifespan on this net is following the proper trapping protocol. A lot of the damage that we'll ever see is typically due to improper protocol. A lot of times the pigs will either run out of bait, or you can't quite get there to the net early enough in the morning. And that's where we'll normally see any of our cuts or anything like that to the net. So I just wanted to reiterate some of this, that 4 to 5 pounds per pig is recommended. So for a 20 pig sounder, that could very easily be 100 pounds of corn. So be ready with plenty of bait. That way you're not going to run into any issues where those pigs run out of food. The second thing is arriving early. You're going to want to be there right as the sun's coming up. That way, when pigs get caught out in the open, when the sun is up, they have a tendency to want to flee or get out into some cover. And so you're going to want to arrive there early in the morning to dispatch them. And then the third thing there is maintaining a proper setup. You're going to want to make sure that that trap is set at the proper height of about 5 foot. You're going to want to make sure that there's good tension on the net. You don't want any sagging or anything like that, because that can lead to damage. All right. And so then another thing here is optimizing spring setup. One thing to keep in mind if you are going to be trapping during the springtime is that we do receive a lot of rain during the spring. And so with rain brings mud, brings flooding. And so if you're going to be trapping near any creek areas, creek embankments, be sure that that net is set up, whether it's up out of the way of the floodplain, or just be cognizant of when you're receiving rain, that you're pulling that net out of the area. Because if you leave that net down there, you'll have a lot of sticks, leaves, debris that gets caught up in the net, and it's no fun to have to clean all of that out. So be sure that you're keeping flooding in mind, and also be sure that you're keeping deadfall or dead trees in mind. If you're setting up a tree near, or if you're setting up a trap near a dead tree, you want to make sure that there's no limbs that could be knocked down in a windstorm or a rainstorm. You're going to want to make sure that the tree is not going to fall down, because if it lands on your trap, it could cause damage. So just keep that in mind in your springtime setups. Another thing to keep in mind is that vegetation grows very quickly this time of year. So if you're in an area that isn't having very frequent pig activity, you just want to keep in mind checking your trap site frequently to make sure that you're not having a lot of vines growing in there, because that also can be a mess to try and clean out. It's no fun. Second thing here is the conditioning importance. So, conditioning this time of year, if you're going to continue to trap this time of year, is very important. Uh, like we'd mentioned earlier, your bait leverage is very low this time of year, and so there is so much food available to the pigs that they have no reason to put themselves in a situation that makes them uncomfortable. So, being sure that you're conditioning properly when you bring the pigs in, you want to make sure that the entire group is feeding comfortably under the net for at least 2 to 3 days. If they've just immediately come to the net, you don't want to go ahead and set it down because, like I'd said, the pigs have no reason to stick around if they feel uncomfortable in any way. They've got plenty of food elsewhere. So conditioning is very, very important. And then one of the last things I'll mention on here is trapping seasons. Now, spring is not necessarily a great time of year to trap because of all the food. Fall is the same way. But in the late summer, when it starts to get very hot and all the food and green plants start to die off, all of their food goes away, or most of their food goes away. So we're receiving less rain. It's getting hotter, so plants are dying off, and that's eliminating a lot of their food sources. So that's a great time of the year to trap. Another great time of the year to trap is in the winter, specifically towards the later end of the winter, when everything has died either from frost or lack of rain. And you have a lot of those mast crop trees have already fallen. All of the acorns have dropped, and all of the animals have fed on all of those acorns. So all those have pretty much, for the most part, been picked up. So your best bait leverage is going to be during that late summer, that winter time frame. That's when you're typically going to have some of your best trapping. And that is all I have for y'all today. Does anyone have any questions?
Christopher Carlisle has a question here that's something that comes up very, very frequently, and said in the question that he's caught had two catches and two traps and a lot of pigs caught and removed and so forth, and now the pigs are completely avoiding the trap basically at all costs. He said, "What's the advice for those shy pigs that won't approach the trap?" And he said, "Do we take it down and move it, or just leave it where it is?" So a couple of thoughts, but yeah, so a very, very common question, something that quite a few people see.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great question. So, a lot of times, what we'll recommend is when you have multiple catches in one spot, you're going to want to make sure that when you have a catch, you're going to want to kick out any of the fecal matter that the pigs leave behind. You're going to want to get that away from the trap site because a lot of times that'll be one of the main reasons that pigs are kind of shying away from a trapping site. Another thing to keep in mind is when you dispatch pigs in the trap, you're going to want to either, if it's dry ground, you're going to want to kick dirt over any blood that's in the bottom of the trap, or if it's muddy ground, you're going to want to stamp that blood down into the mud. That helps get those soil microbes working on it and gets rid of that blood quickly. There's a lot of factors that could be going into this issue. A lot of times, if we condition and we don't quite condition for the complete period of time that we, normally recommend, you can end up with a few stragglers that may not have entered the trap, and so those pigs are going to start to become smart to the trap. Now, there is still hope for it. What we'll recommend, there is a couple of tricks that you can use to get those pigs to come in. There is the dry rod trick that if the pigs are approaching the trap and feeding under the trap, but when you put the net down, they don't seem to want to push under, The drive rod trick will help kind of prop up a section of the net to where the pigs can see in, and a lot of times that will encourage them to push under. But that's a for that situation in specific, that would be a great phone call if you called our trap support. They would love to talk you through that situation and see what specifically may be going on.
Yeah, Tony, if you got a little time, I got a couple of thoughts in here too. One, as far as the questions is keeping it up or taking it down. You mentioned one of them covered it very, very clearly there as far as if it's not, you're not going to be using that trap for a length of time, go ahead and take it down, especially in the spring or summertime, because of the vines. You made reference to the vines and things like that growing up into the net. That pig brig will be a perfect place for those vines to hedge up into, and yeah, I'd take it down. The other thing is depending on time of year. We have seen before where squirrels will do the same thing as the rats will. Sometimes if you leave it in a given area too long and not attending it, those squirrels will start to try to chew on that pig brig, trying to make nest material as well. So if you're not going to use that pig brig in that location for 6 weeks or so or whatever, it's probably best to take it down and remove it from the area. Um, the other thing is that as far as the condition is concerned, a lot of times the fallacy is on the inception of the conditioning is instead of whenever traps are put up, instead of immediately putting the bait inside the trap itself, we start with conditioning the majority of the bait on the outside of that trap. If those pigs are cautious and you can see them in the background of the trap, or the image, is that's probably where you need to start with that bait and start gradually working those pigs to that trap without pressuring those pigs to make them to force them to do what they don't want to do. I mean, Tony, you said it very, very clearly too, is that these sometimes of the year that bait leverage is not there, and those pigs are extremely aware and cautious, and they're not going to easily approach that. So the thing is that if we catch pigs for a few days, it might be best to put that trap into conditioning mode, give those pigs a chance to relax just a minute, if you want to call it that, and then go at them again. The other thing is that if you did pressure or you did condition perfectly right, you caught 100% of those two sounders, then whenever you do and you remove those pigs out of that area, pigs on the adjacent areas, the adjacent properties are going to realize there's a void and they'll move in. And so the other consideration is that you may have pigs moving in from an area where they were heavily pressured. You don't know what those pigs have been exposed to, where they were coming from, and it could be that you're working with animals that you had no control over as far as educating them, but now you need to address the fact that you got educated pigs. So just be cautious, be patient. And in that situation, it might be too that we lift that net completely up off the ground where those pigs can see perfect all the way through, one side to the other with no obstructions. The last thought that I've got on this here too, Tony, is as far as what are the dynamics of the pigs in that sounder? Are the sows that are in that sounder, are they heavy bred or do they have little pigs on side? If they're heavy bred or they've got little pigs on side, then that means they don't want to interact with a boar. So if there are boars in the area and they're frequently attending that trap, and they may not be there at the same time, but they can definitely leave odor. And those females that are heavy bred or small pigs, they don't really want to interact too much with those boars. And so if they come into an area where there's a boar that's got a lot of musk in the air, a lot of smell in the air, then they may avoid that area for that reason as well, with not bringing those pigs in. So there could be any number of things there. But Tony, yeah, you're dead on right as far as your specific question. We can probably help out more in detail, but it's probably going to be a game of 20 questions. We're going to ask a lot of questions, and the answer will evolve through that questioning process. So let's see here. The next question is, Tony, that come in here is Robert Loper is asked here is how do you minimize the damage net by raccoons? And this is another common question that comes in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a little trick for raccoons called the raccoon ramp. And basically what you'll do is you'll take a branch that's long enough to go from the top of the trap down to the floor of the trap, and you'll attach it just to the top of the trap. And that allows for an easy section to where when the raccoons work under the net, they'll actually be able to easily climb up and over the net instead of trying to chew their way through. So that allows for kind of a bridge to allow those raccoons to get out very easily.
Another time I've seen damage that's brought on by raccoons is if specifically when people are using fermented bait. Instead of actually getting into the trap itself and putting the bait where it needs to be, is they'll take that bait slurry, that slush of fermented bait, and they'll throw it through the side wall of the trap. And with the material that's on the pig brig absorbing that bait material that's thrown through the side, those raccoons or even pigs or whatever it's in there will focus their attention on chewing on that part of the netting because of that bait odor that's in that the fiber of that material. So yeah, it's a very common question. But
Yeah, and
and then other
that's a
times
great
too
point.
is go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a great point. And in addition to that, a lot of times, if we ever see any damage to the trap due to non-target species, whether it's raccoons or squirrels or something like that, oftentimes it's when you leave the trap down for an extended period of time. We normally will recommend conditioning the pigs and then setting the trap down for maybe 1 or 2 days. But if you leave it down for an extended period of time, you're definitely a lot more likely to receive some sort of damage.
Yeah, very good point. I don't see any other questions that's coming in here, but one other thought that I've had in here too, Tony, as far as whenever you're cleaning the net, is definitely do not use any heavy detergents. Whenever you're cleaning that net, using heavy detergents on your pig brig will degrade the UV coating on it, and we want to make sure that whenever you use any kind of cleaning, it's just tap water.
Absolutely. Yeah, no chemicals. You don't try and add any additional coatings or anything like that, because all of that could interact or hinder with the UV coating that's currently present on it. So
Right.
Awesome. Well, I don't think I'm seeing any other questions rolling in. So I want to thank you guys. Thank you so much to Tony for the amazing presentation, for Aaron helping answer questions. This recording of the webinar will be sent out within the next few days, so keep your eye on your inbox. We're also going to send out an email about other upcoming webinars, so be sure that you're on the email list. Thanks again for joining us tonight, and have a great rest of your day.